Hola everyone, welcome to the Draft Dynasty channel. I've decided to do a video on William Wallinder and I'm gonna compare him with LG Grants. It's gonna be easier to compare both of the two defensemen from Sweden. And I just want to say a quick thank you to all the new subscribers to the channel. I've had a lot of new ones since the draft lottery. And shout out to the Montreal Canadiens, my team. We've now have a chance for Lafreniere. 12.5%. Pretty excited with that. Alright, so let's take a look at his profile. He is born on July 28th. He is one of the youngest players in the draft. Still 17 years old, 6'4", 192 pounds, and he's not that big on the ice. You're gonna notice during the clip, he's not strong physically. I think he's undersized right now. He's probably gonna gain at least 20 pounds, 25 pounds when it is full maturity. If we take a look at his ranking, you're gonna notice that some people have him really low, so late second round, and some have him as early as top 20, late second round. So he's a tough one to evaluate, and I'm gonna try to do my best later in the video. Let's take a look at his profile, and there's not much to say really. He finished with 24 points in 37 games, so nothing crazy. This is at the under 20 level. He also played versus men, 18 games with only 2 assists. Nothing super exciting, but he did play pretty well at that level. I was impressed with him. He started to play a bit more conservative, less mistake, not as aggressively. He started to switch his game more defensive minded at that level, and I was impressed with that. In the international tournament, similar to LG Grants, both of them really missed a nice opportunity to show what they were able to do, and they were pretty average, both of them, not really noticeable on the ice, and I had higher expectation for them. Alright, so without losing any further time, let's jump into the footage. So you are going to be looking at the number 54 whenever he is in the junior level, and the number 5 when he's playing against men in pro hockey in the Allsvenskan. So the number one thing I like about his game, and with him it was super easy because he is one of the best skater in the whole draft, and more specifically his lateral mobility, his edges, his coordination, his overall fluidity. This guy is what I would call buttery smooth. It's insane, and it's rare that I've scouted some player and I have to pause the video and go back because sometimes I lose focus on the game and I'm just watching him skate. And it's not so much his straight line skating. I think his straight line is fine, but it's really more about the fluidity, coordination whenever he moves from side to side. Even when I look back to the last year draft, it's really hard to find a defenseman with that type of agility. Maybe Thomas Harley could be in the same category, but other than that, him and Harley are just on another level. This is not normal, like I said. Those guys are just natural born talent in terms of how they skate. And the scary thing about Wallinder, I might show some clip later in the video, but he's pretty weak physically, both upper body and lower body, and there's a lot of time where he would bump into player and he falls on the ice really easily. He's not really strong, and there's also other time where he would do a sprint and after that try to get back, and I could tell that his legs were completely dead. So the endurance is really not there, and it's normal for a guy that a young 17 years old, a 6'4", it's gonna take time before he's able to feel that body, and watch out when he does, because I think what we're seeing right now might be just only 60% of what he can do in terms of skating, and when you put some muscle into those legs, he's gonna be flying. Getting back to LG Grants and the comparison with Wallinder, so in terms of straight line skating, I would say they are pretty comparable. I prefer the technique of Wallinder. I think LG Grants is technique is a little bit funky, but he does move pretty fast even though it's not that pretty. But the big difference is whenever they need to pivot. If you've watched the video on LG Grants, I was saying it was more of in two parts. So there was the pivoting part that was taking a lot of time, and after that it would go in a straight line. With Wallinder, it's really one motion. You can tell everything is a lot quicker when you need to change direction. So for that reason, it's gonna be much harder to beat one-on-one. He's not gonna get beat by speed like LG Grants would. So that would be one of the big difference between the two. I'm just much more comfortable whenever Wallinder is on the ice and there's a one-on-one, two-on-one. The main reason why I'm more comfortable with Wallinder on the ice whenever there's a transition, first of all, his skating I think is better, so this is a big part, but he's also doing a better job with gap control and just adjusting to the other player's speed. And second of all, and this is the most important one, and it would be mentally. Wallinder I think is better at risk assessment, so he knows he's smelling trouble a little bit earlier than LG Grants. LG Grants just got a tendency to play with fire a lot of time, and he gets burned definitely more often than a guy like Wallinder. So for that reason, I think the upside defensively would go to Wallinder, especially with those quick feet. He's gonna be able to follow the smaller guys, the smaller speedster with skills. I think Wallinder is gonna be able to follow those guys, and he also has the size to maybe play against the bigger guy. Now let's move to the second category I like the most about his game, and it's gonna be in correlation with his skating. So Wallinder is a very good puck carrier. He is what we would call a puck moving defenseman, and the majority of the time he's using his feet to get the puck out of his zone. And especially at the junior level in Sweden, they are playing on a big ice. There's very little physicality in that league. It's pretty soft in terms of physicality, so that's the perfect environment for a good skater like him. He was able to skate around all the player and exit the zone really effortlessly. But honestly, being a good puck carrier, it's not really a skill set that I value super highly. I would much rather have a guy like LG Grants, who is very good with the first pass, compared to a guy that uses mostly his feet to exit the zone. So his puck carrying ability, that's a skill set that I'm not sure is going to translate that well at the NHL level. Sure, it might help him, but maybe once per game he's going to use it. One area of the game where it's really nice to have a good puck moving defenseman, it's on the power play, whenever you need to exit the zone and zone entry on the other side, especially for those that are winger or forward. It's really annoying when you need to do all the heavy lifting just to get in the offensive zone, and after that you're kind of tired once you enter the other zone. So it's nice to have a defenseman that is able to do that, but we're gonna see later in the video, I don't think he's got enough offensive skills to play on the first unit on the power play, maybe the second unit, but even the second unit, I don't see a whole lot of upside for him offensively. So that's why I'm saying maybe his puck carrying skills will be a bit of a waste, and we won't see it as much at the NHL level.
They went 0 for 4 against Russia in their first game. They're 1 for 4 here today.
Also, another thing that I noticed whenever he was doing those type of end-to-end rushes, sometimes he would get tunnel vision and he would try to force a one-on-one situation and try to deke the other defenseman. And there's time where he had really easy passing lane and he would pass on them and try to deke, go for the highlight. And his stick handling is really not on that level. He doesn't have the stick handling to do some highlight move. He should really try to just take what the other team is giving him and not force a one-on-one if it's not needed. Sometimes you can do it for sure, but this is a pretty common mistake for young rookie defensemen. They're gonna try too much to do the fancy stuff when they don't really have the skill level to execute those type of play. Now let's take a look at his ability to make a good first pass, and I would say he is just average at that. He's not bad, he's not good. He's able to make the easier pass, but whenever he's under a lot of pressure, sometimes he has a tendency to lack accuracy with his pass. So his pass are gonna be maybe a little bit too behind, ahead. So he has trouble sometimes with that. And also I think he's not really quick at seeing passing lane, especially when it's a bit more in traffic or in the second wave behind the play. He's not always gonna see those passes, or other one where he needs to maybe sneak in, be more creative. So in terms of quality of a good first pass, I would give a huge edge to LG Grants, and this is might be a deal breaker in the end. LG Grants is another level in terms of a first pass. He's always able to keep his poise. He's gonna see those harder pass. He's also much better at using his other D partner. It's really rare that I saw Wallinder do an over to his D partner, so Grants was better with that. And finally, just in terms of quantity of good clips I was able to get of complete first passes, Grants maybe had 4 or 5 times more clips from the game I've watched, so the volume was much higher for Grants. So this was for the first pass, but it was also true just in terms of overall playmaking ability. So in the offensive zone, Wallinder was really not able to do a whole lot of playmaking, especially at 5-on-5. I really don't have much really prime passes in high danger area, so he was just doing the easier pass but not creating much, and this is getting me worried a little bit. And also, if we look at his past history, he never really had a track record of dominating a league offensively, so he always was pretty much on the average, never crushing anything on the offensive side. So again, this is another area where I would give the advantage to LG Grants. I think he was creating a whole lot more, and even in the SHL he was able to have some shift where he was dominant and he could take over for 1 or 2 two shift and elevate his game. So that's kind of the big knock I have on Wallinder. Sometimes you're just mesmerized, you're watching him skate, and you finish the game and you're like, well, he didn't do much in that game. And it's like that on a lot of games. He's not really the type of player that's gonna elevate his game and take over, be the driving force. He's more of a passenger at times, and sometimes it's a bit frustrating because you know the tools are pretty good and high-end, but he's not doing much with them. Another area of the game where I was really disappointed with him, it was his shooting ability. Out of all the players that have a chance to go in the first round, I think he might have the worst shot. There's a lot of things wrong about that shot. So first of all, his wind-up. It takes a lot of time for him to shoot. Second of all, his accuracy is really bad. Sometimes I saw him shoot extremely wide, and he had a lot of time to make his shot. So there's really no excuse for him. I think even a soccer net wouldn't be enough at times. That's how bad the accuracy was. And you put on top of that he has almost zero power into his shot. So first, it takes a lot of time. After that, he doesn't have the accuracy and he doesn't have the power. So it's just a recipe for disaster in terms of shooting. The only good thing he has on his side, and it's similar to LG Grant's, he's got the lateral mobility to find those shooting lane. Another thing that I noticed is that I feel like he's playing with a very stiff stick. There's not a lot of whip every time he's shooting. And this, when you're playing with a stiff stick, it's good for control. You're gonna have a better feel for the puck. It's also good for the accuracy. But every time you need to shoot, you're gonna have to put a whole lot more into it every time. You cannot just use your upper body, use the flex of your stick. And this is something LG Grants was doing very well. And when you're a player like William Wallinder, who is lacking the upper body strength, the lower body is weak overall, I think you should really try to play with a bit more flex in your stick. It will compensate for his lack of strength, and it will also be easier for him to make some quicker shot, faster release, because he's going to be able at times to just use his upper body, use the flex of his stick. He might lose a little bit in terms of accuracy, but like I said earlier, the accuracy is already bad to begin with, so might as well just go for a bit more power and a quicker release. And this is another area of the game where I would give a big edge to LG Grants compared to Wallinder. To finish the video, we're going to take a quick look at his defensive game. So I have a few clips where he struggled a little bit defensively. So like I said earlier, he's got good potential on the defensive side, but he's not good right now. He's just average, I would say, defensively. Definitely a work in progress for him on the defensive side. So that's why he's a bit hard to evaluate, because on one side, you have one of the best skater in the draft. He's also 6'4", and he is underdeveloped. So this is a player that's going to take a lot more time to reach his full potential, maybe 4 years. So if your team just selected this player and you're watching the video, you're gonna have to be patient with this guy. He's a long-term project. If we evaluate this player for what he is right now, I think he is a mid to late second round pick. But when we're drafting a player, we're not drafting him for what he is right now. We're drafting him for what he's gonna be, and I think it's pretty obvious that this guy's got a lot of room to grow. So in 2 or 3 years, when we're gonna start to see the other prospect kind of slowing down in terms of progression rate, this guy might still be improving at a pretty quick rate, and he's gonna catch up the other player. And it's about risk and reward, and with a guy like that with elite skating, 6'4" defenseman, the reward is gonna be very big if he happens to put all the pieces together and hit his full potential. So for all those reasons, I'm gonna put him toward the end of my first round. I think the reward is just too big. Even though I have some doubt and he's not my favorite player in the world, you cannot deny his upside. And now getting back to the comparison with LG Grants, I'm gonna have LG Grants slightly ahead of Wallinder. I think he does a lot of things better than Wallinder, even though he's more risky in terms of mistake, and mentally sometimes he has some brain fart. It's just much harder to find those offensive defensemen that have the upside to make maybe more than 50 points in the NHL. If you look in this draft, all the offensive defensemen, I'm gonna go over a few of them: Jérémy Poirier, Alex Cotton, Lucas Cormier, Emile Andrea, Anton Johannesson, William Villeneuve, Benning, Jacob Dion. All those defensemen either have very big problem in terms of size and they won't be able to defend in the NHL, and if not, they have a lot of red flag that you're gonna need to work with. And on the other hand, if you want a player similar to Wallinder, that's gonna be an elite or above average skater and it's gonna be able to defend pretty well at the next level, you have a lot of choice here. So you can go with a guy like Ronan Seeley, Victor Pearson, Emil Viro, Wyatt Kaiser, Yoni Yurmo, Riker Evans, Justin Byron, Eamon Powell. So there's a lot of defensemen that are gonna be able to skate at the NHL level and be somewhat good defensively. So that's kind of my reasoning as to why I prefer Grants over Wallinder. They're still gonna be pretty close in my ranking, but like I said, I think it's easier to find a player that's gonna be similar to Wallinder in terms of what they can bring to the table. Anyways, this is it for this episode. The next one's probably gonna be another European defenseman, Topi Niemela. I've been thinking about doing him for quite a while, so I'm just gonna do all those European defensemen back to back. There's not a ton of information on them out there, so I think people will enjoy that. This is it for this one. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and see you on the next one. Bye.